pick up the phone and call owners, call the Google number, right? And try to just say, hey, my name's Nick. I'm, wondered if you're interested in selling your storage facility. And, that's how we found a lot of our deals. And that's still how we find a lot of our deals.
So welcome, everyone. We'll be short and efficient today. A little background as to why we invented Nick. We did not invent Nick. That would be cool. Cool IP, but why we invited Nick. In January, we wanted to focus on acquisitions because this conversation comes up so often in the group. But specifically, I wanted to dive into acquisitions of brick and mortar versus online businesses, because I think there's a lot of pieces of conversation between the two of those that are missing. A lot of what we learned on Monday was based on, what you're more comfortable with. And as an example, I'm more comfortable with physical spaces, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited to have you. Is like the brick and mortar is what I feel like. The things I can touch, the experiences I can see, just make me more excited. But Nick specifically, I was just telling him actually before we jumped on this call that I've always looked up to him because when I ran my own brick and mortar business, I started listening to his podcast. I was really curious about the people who are out there in the entrepreneurial world that were talking about physical spaces. It seemed a lot harder to find. And Nick, I know you had, correct me if I'm wrong, a 6-figure exit last January, I believe it was. And I know that you have a heavy focus on the real estate side, along with owning a ton of self-storage facilities. Mm-hmm. What do you find is the main seller motivation when you're approaching them? Why would they sell to you?
It's money. I think we pay well, right? I mean, you're talking a family, maybe even one person that owns a building, and we're going to buy it. Our average deal size is $3 million. So it's life-changing money when we show up and we want to buy these buildings. But also they're getting to be old. I mean, the average service business entrepreneur, they don't even call themselves entrepreneurs. They just run their business. That's what they've always done in their town. They fell into it. They've been, at it for years, and they might be 60, 65, 70 years old, and their kids are off to college and working at firms in the cities or wherever, and they have no desire to go back to these small towns to run a storage business. So they don't really have much of an option, right?
Why did you start with storage, and have you ever deviated into another service business? Why not?
So yeah, business is so much about momentum, right? I'm 10 years into my entrepreneurial journey. Actually, we're going on 11 years. We started in 2011. I had no money. I was a student in college, and we used our vehicles to drive around and pick up boxes that we bought at Home Depot, and we stored them in our dorm rooms. So that was our very first business. And we just did that because we didn't watch Shark Tank. We didn't take entrepreneurship classes at school. We didn't consider ourselves entrepreneurs. We just saw an opportunity to make a quick dollar. Most people would not have been excited at all about what we were doing at the time, which was driving around picking up college student stuff. It was basically a moving company. As a matter of fact, most of our friends who were entrepreneurs, they put up their nose at what we were doing, because what we were doing was small time. We were making, our goal was to make 50 grand that first year. The next year we made 150 grand. The year after that, we made 200 grand. You do that for 5 years, all of a sudden you have $500,000 in the bank. You can go buy storage. But it was an evolution, right? It was very much nitty gritty. We were working with our hands. We were driving trucks. Then 2 years later, we had a team of 3 or 4 full-time employees and a lot of part-time employees. 5 years after that, that's when, things really started to move, and we had some operational prowess. We got better at what we were doing, and we got some cash. And with cash comes the opportunity to do other things. And that's when we decided to get into real estate. But I would say there's been a lot of opportunities along the way. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that, we were able to focus and do that business for a while, even when it became not fun. After the very first year, when we made a lot of progress, got a lot of customers, you're making a lot. When you start a company, you make a lot of progress fast, right? Your website comes together. You get those early customers. You're learning a lot. Year 2, year 3, it becomes I call it the dip, right? You're going through like the not fun part of running that company. We said no to a lot of other opportunities and stuck with it. And we're really glad we did.
Logan says, it sounds like you fell into self-storage and ran with it, which, yes, we just heard. So I'm going to ask a Sampar, Sean Puri type question. If you had to start over, would you have picked this industry again, or would you pick a different one?
Yeah, I'm so thankful about my journey. Moving business is freaking hard. I always say, like, work from hard businesses down to easier businesses. There's nothing easier than leveraging a bunch of capital to buy a self-storage facility that nobody lives in, that all you need to do is keep clean and answer the phone. I mean, that's a pretty easy business. I don't work a lot right now. I mean, obviously there are challenges, a lot of things to be stressed about. We can talk about that, but that first business was really tough. So maybe I wouldn't start with moving, especially student moving. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, we learned a lot. We learned a lot about delegation because we had to operate in 12 cities at the same time. We couldn't be in all of them. So we learned a ton about delegation and management and getting uncomfortable. And that stuff served us really, really well. I think looking back now, what would I start now? I can actually drop a link right in this Q&A, but all kinds of service businesses are really good opportunities to start a company. And this is a link
Oh,
from
nice.
my website with about 150 service-based businesses. And look, these are low-risk businesses. You don't need a lot of cash. You don't need a lot of experience. You can go out and trade your time for money at first. I always recommend, like, don't try to start the next Facebook or, you don't need to raise venture capital. Look up from your computer screen and go find a way to make $1,000.
Mm.
That's it. Go find a way to make $1,000, figure out how easy it was to make that $1,000, and then assess from there whether it's a good opportunity. So, I would not trade my service-based background for the world. Even though I'm in real estate now, it's not really a service-based business. I'm really kind of on the real estate private equity side. I'm raising the money. I'm putting together the deals. I'm working on acquisitions. But my background in service-based entrepreneurship of hiring, training, managing customer service, routes, all the logistics of running that business served me really, really well.
What does it take to make it onto your businesses I love list? Like, how did you narrow the scope of this criteria?
So they're sweaty, right? I mean, if people like things, and I'll just kind of go on a rant here that many people in your community may disagree with. If it's fun, if it's exciting, if it's cutting edge, if it's a hobbyist type thing, what you're going to find is a lot of competition. So if it's fun to do, you're going to find a lot of competition. If it's not fun to do, you're not going to find a lot of competition. Pumping septic tanks is not fun. Hauling junk is not fun. Mowing lawns is not fun. Moving boxes is not fun. That means that the entrepreneurs who really are doing things for selfish reasons, and I think the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs is they do things for selfish reasons, meaning, hey, what do I like doing? And you hear it all the time when you're growing up. Like, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do? What kind of business do you want to start? What are you interested in? Capitalism and the economy doesn't give a crap about what Nick Huber wants to do. It's going to reward me for adding value to the world. The more value I can add to the world, the better it's going to get for me. Because so you really have to look at entrepreneurship. And if you take one thing away from this conference call with me, or if you're watching this later, put yourself and what you want on the back burner and find the best opportunity to go out and make your money. And once you make money, and once you've made money for 3 or 4 years, then it's time to start doing what you want to do. Right?
It's interesting to hear that because I agree. And I feel like what you're saying would help people maybe bypass these years of thrashing that they go through, trying to marry this idea of like, what am I passionate about? I hate the word passion simply for how cliche it's become in terms of like, find what you're passionate about and then you'll never work a day in your life. There's so much about that I feel like has sent, especially younger people, down a very strange path of feeling like they have to monetize every single thing they enjoy and then not understanding why it's not monetizing well. Like that whole philosophy, I think it can be really causing a lot of pain.
When you look at a successful business, a CEO, a manager, let's just say a successful business is making $500,000 a year in profit. That's really successful, right? I can live the life of my dreams. April, I'm sure you would live your dream life on $500,000 a year. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
What is the CEO of a company that is making $500,000 a year doing with their time? I guarantee you they're not doing the things that they once loved, even if in a business that's fun. If they're in a web development company, I guarantee you they're not the ones doing the design, right? If they're in a any kind of company, if you're growing to the point you have 3, 4, 5 employees, you're doing the same things. You're solving problems, you're having difficult conversations, you're recruiting and hiring, and you're selling.
Yeah.
Those 4 things, like that's what you do as a business owner in all businesses. So it doesn't matter if you're doing something sweaty as digging trenches or as fun as, interior design, right? So that's kind of the point of my whole mantra is if you look for things that aren't necessarily fun and sexy, the competition is going to be a lot weaker. If you go into the restaurant space, a guy just made a comment, Logan, a chef works his way to the top of the kitchen. never to cook, right? He's never trying to cook. But in the restaurant space, you have a ton of people who they love cooking. They love cooking. That's why they are in the space. And it's really tough to compete with those people. It's really tough to compete with people who are making emotional decisions. They don't necessarily care about the finance. They don't care if they're actually profitable. It's tough to compete in those spaces. So my advice would be to avoid those spaces.
Yeah, I did run a dance studio for 11 years, and dance was the least of what I did. And it was a really frustrating experience at times. And when I moved to Boston, I knew I still wanted to teach, but I couldn't wait to just get a teaching job somewhere else. Not be in charge of it, show up, do the thing that I find most engaging without the idea of having to make some sort of like money off of it. Because you said a second ago, the more fun, the most competition. I think it's one of the reasons like creatives and artists really struggle is like creativity is fun and people want to do it. And it's not something that's easy to justify payment for.
Yeah, I think the attributes that really separate, you look at the people who are really successful, the entrepreneurs that get it done, they make money, aside from the one-off cases, they're good salespeople, right? They know how to convince other people, whether it be customers or employees, to join their mission. Hey, my name is Nick. I'm going to do my best to, let's just say we're in a job interview and I'm trying to convince you to come join my team. I'm selling you on our company and our vision, right? And if you're a customer and you're about to pay me, I'm trying to sell you on my services and what I can do. As an entrepreneur, you're selling your heart out all day, every day. I mean, that's all you do. You're selling with the way you write. You're selling with the way you talk. You're selling your customers. You're selling your employees. You're selling your investors. It's sales. Life is sales. I had to sell my 2-year-old on actually wanting to get in the car today because he wanted his mommy to put him in the car, right?
I had to sell my dog on that same thing today. Okay, we have questions that are pouring in here. What are you looking for in an investment opportunity? Cap rate, value add, all of the above? How do you assess that?
Yeah, so if we go into the weeds of self-storage, we're looking for an underutilized facility from a revenue standpoint. You talked to me a year ago, I was excited about how we do remote management. We're really efficient. We can spend less money to operate a facility than other people. Today, I'm really excited about under-optimized revenue opportunities, meaning somebody's owned a facility for 20 years and they've raised the rents once or never, right? They still charge $30 or $40 for a 10 by 10 unit. That is what I'm looking for. We look for, hey, we think the market rent in this small town should be about $90 for a 10 by 10. That makes sense for market. I think, there's not enough units available. I think over time it'd be a $90 market. We're going to try to buy a facility in that town that charges $50. And then there's a lot of room for us to grow and add value to that property.
And I would assume that you do that incrementally, so as not to completely isolate the customer base, or do you just jump in guns blazing?
It's tricky. It all depends, right? If we're going to do major upgrades to the building, security cameras, new pavement, you can bump it quicker. It's a touchy subject, but yeah, we really, the goal is 2 years after we acquire it to have it optimized.
Gotcha. Next question says, I've started modeling out RV, boat, classic car storage facilities based on the boom of RV sales during COVID. In general, what would you recommend to me and others looking to get started in this business? Do you start local? Do you open your first out of state?
So we bought our second facility after the one we built. First of all, I lived in Boston when we built the one in Ithaca. Then I still lived in Boston when we bought our second one in Pittsburgh, and then we bought one in Erie, Pennsylvania. So we always were very comfortable with remote management, but you look at my history and we had a lot of experience with that. So it might not be right for everybody, but yeah, there's a ton of these things. If you want to acquire a self-storage facility, my advice to you would be to pick up the phone, make a radius of 1 or 2 hours around you, pick up the phone and call owners, call the Google number, right? And try to just say, hey, my name's Nick. I'm, wondered if you're interested in selling your storage facility. And, that's how we found a lot of our deals. And that's still how we find a lot of our deals.
You just call and ask outright.
Yeah. My name's Nick. We bought 42 buildings last year. We own over 1 million square feet. We'd like to make you a great offer on your building. We don't need much information. Would you want to sell? And for anybody listening, for anybody listening, if you find one that's too big for you, send me a message. We do a finder's fee if you can find me a storage facility to buy. But yeah, I think it really is that simple. But that doesn't scale, right? That's not an easy solution. Having to cold call a bunch of people, right? It's kind of hard.
Well, it also just surprises me as a tactic, which says a lot about maybe my own limiting belief system, but it feels like people are so guarded, especially when you're looking at service-based entrepreneurs. The ones that I've met in my city, they're a little bit old-fashioned, they're more skeptical. It feels like there would be like sort of a guard up there, but I guess I've
Oh,
been
it
incorrect
is.
about
There
that.
is. I mean, they're going to hang up on you. They're going to tell you to F off. They're going to be
Ah,
mean to you. But I mean, it's a numbers game, right?
gotcha.
You gotta catch some. And I think so many people just overcomplicate entrepreneurship. I mean, I was listening to Sam Parr talk at a conference in Austin, and he's like, I had this breakthrough when we were about to sell the company, or we're building a company, or I was consulting somebody who's about to sell a company. This is just a bunch of Google Sheets connected by Zapier, right? That's all this really is. That's what this company is. And when you really boil down business, you hear a lot of business philosophers. Have you ever heard and I'm going to butcher this, but have you ever heard the saying about the hole in the wall? Like you need to get it. Somebody needs a drill bit. Somebody needs to buy a
Yeah,
drill bit.
yes, but they don't really
So
need a drill bit, they need a hole. Yeah, yeah.
and they don't really need a hole. They need to hang a picture of their family. And they don't really need to hang a picture of their family. They need to show love for that family member that they're trying to hang on the wall. It goes something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That is the dumbest thing ever. And it just it just convolutes and overcomplicates this whole entrepreneurship thing. Businesses can be very, very, very simple. Hey, I am going to show up at your house, and those little pieces of green grass that get a little too tall on your lawn, I'm going to cut them for you and make sure that they stay this long instead of get ugly. That's my business.
Yeah, it's so funny to hear that. It's actually Seth Godin is the first person I ever heard tell that story about the drill bit.
And I think it is a great story. I actually have an old podcast where I was promoting that mantra, but I just think I'm taking a different angle, like simplify it, right? Business can be
Yeah.
very, very simple. Hey, here's a self-storage facility that we need to buy. What's the easiest way for me to get in touch with that storage facility? Oh, wait, their phone number's on Google. Why don't we just give it a ring?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, next question says storage business has been very popular in the startup sphere in the past several years. Do you feel there's still money to be made?
Oh,
Obviously, you do.
well, it's nice to see we got a lot of real estate entrepreneurs who tuned into this one, and I'm happy to keep talking about real estate. But the thing about real estate is that many people who own real estate I'd say the average age is 60 to 80 years old of any, and I say commercial real estate, not necessarily a house, right? But I'm talking about a commercial, income producing asset, an asset in our country. You look at commercial real estate, the average owner or group of owners is probably around 60 to 63 years old. I'm just making a wild guess of what I'm finding out there in this world.
Mhm.
And the people who own real estate, they're not tech savvy. They don't, many of them don't even know how to write well at all or send an email and reply all. I mean, we deal with people in the real estate business, attorneys who are closing deals that don't know how to reply all to emails. They don't know even email etiquette.
Yeah.
And they're all very wealthy. They've been wealthy for a while. A lot of real estate people are dumb and wealthy. And Sam Parr says this all the time. He's in My First Million, he has a statement that says, like, find a business where a lot of dumb people are making really good money and go to real estate.
Yeah,
And
he says real estate. Yeah.
he's right. I mean, I am not a smart guy. I got a 23 on my ACT. Everybody who listening to this probably did better on their standardized exams than I did. At 12, I think I got a 1240 on my SAT. So find a business where dumb people are making money and rich people are making money. And what you find is that a ton of these people are wealthy. They've been wealthy for a long time. They're not operational savvy. They're from maybe even family money, and they have not done the work to optimize their real estate. So you have a lot of people who are lazy and wealthy that own buildings that are not doing the work to optimize them, meaning drive revenue, raise rents. All this stuff is hard work. Raising rents is hard work. It's emotionally challenging. Then you got getting new customers. You got to run Google AdWords. How many leasing agents run Google AdWords for the office space or retail space, right? How many? So when you look at, is there opportunities in real estate? I think just in my town, just in Athens, Georgia, I'm just making an example. There's probably $100 million of pent up value in real estate that is not in existence right now. Just because they're underutilizing space. There's vacant space. They're not doing the work to lease it. They're not charging the right amount of rent, and the service is subpar. And if you're a business owner that's tried to rent a warehouse space or an office space or any of that stuff, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Or have just walked into businesses. Like you can just walk into any businesses and see like 7 levers that are just not being pulled.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that's a heck of a point. I love walking around to look for business ideas. I mean, you can collaborate and that's good, but walking around your physical world with the question in your mind, how does this company make money and what would I do to help this company make more money?
Hmm.
Just walking around your world, you'll find tons of opportunity, and a lot of it is in real estate.
Yeah. I'm interested in the acquisition side of business. I think you already answered this, but this person's asking, do you approach people directly or do you go through a broker?
We do brokers as well. Yeah,
Okay.
so half our acquisitions are done through brokers. We bought $50 million of self storage in 2021, and 25 million of it was through brokers. So half off market, half on market. Yeah, it's we're not doing anything fancy, right? A lot of people are doing what we're doing. There are no secrets. I talk about everything we do on my newsletter and Twitter, right? So
Do you prefer to scale by size and own fewer businesses, or do you find it easier, in particular in sweaty startups, to acquire in volume and run more businesses?
I am a firm believer in focus, and I think most businesses, again, it depends on what your goal is, and if you're ADD and you're running around and you're trying to, pursue a ton of different opportunities, I think that can really hold you back. I think focusing on making the business that you're currently running the best version of that business and the most profitable version is the best way, period. Because you can, you're not going to get overwhelmed. You're not going to be stuck trying to run 3, 4, 5, 6 businesses. And you look at this list of businesses I love, almost any of these can be scaled to a $500,000 a year profit business. And
Mm.
$500,000 a year for 4 or 5 years is really all you need to be set for life.
Um, a little more on the philosophical end, aside from financially, how would you define success?
Yeah, and man, that leads perfectly into this question. I mean, you look at these companies and the opportunities that they have in the potential. You think any entrepreneur is like, okay, what's the TAM? What's the total addressable market? How big could this business potentially be? That is the wrong question, in my
Mhm,
opinion. The right
mhm,
question is, hey, April, how much money do you need to live the life that you want to live?
mhm,
And my wife and I did this exercise 5 years ago, and we weren't anywhere near it yet, but it was 20 grand a month of passive income. I can have a country club where I can play golf. I can have friends. I can go to a decent restaurant a couple times a week. I can travel wherever I want, and I can live a great life. I can do all the things that I want to be doing in my life. And it starts with, like, most people haven't even done the work to figure out what they want to do. Most people have not even done the work of saying, how do I want to live my life? What does a perfect week look like for me 5 years from now? What am I
mhm.
doing? And for entrepreneurs like me, much of our joy and enjoyment comes from building and growing and building businesses. So I think I'll always continue to do this. But um, what is the definition of success? I think it's definitely not $1 billion valuation public company in my world. It's really not. And the cool thing about this is, once you achieve the goals and you get the 20 grand a month coming in, which my wife and I did a couple years ago, that's when things get really fun, and you can start to really build and scale and leverage the things that you're good at, leverage your skills, leverage your capital, and you work less and you make more money. That's just how it works, right? As you get more experience, you work less and you make more money. If you're a good entrepreneur, that is what should happen to you over the course of your career. And heck, that's when it gets really fun, when you can start helping people, and you can put your money to good use, right? You can change the world in small ways.
Next question says, I'm currently trying to sell an education program for teens. You can think of it kind of like a summer camp, but it's fully virtual. Our staff has all been university students and no one is full time, but the person who buys it will need to replace me with a general manager. I want to work on other projects, so I'm not interested in it being hired through acquisition. There are two questions is, how is a service-based business like this valued for sale? And then second is, how does this issue of staffing affect the deal?
Yeah, that's the problem with selling a service-based business, is that if the owner has a significant role, meaning a job that can't hardly be replaced, then the business can be virtually worthless. That's the
Yep.
problem with what we do. And my fear, when I preach my sweaty startup mantra, is that it's very hard to replace yourself. It's very hard to find a business that's profitable enough and find people in place that can replace you and create real value in your company. And most people can't do that. It's just really hard. A lot of spaces, your businesses are too hard for it, or the entrepreneur doesn't have the skill set to delegate and hire and train that person. So it's really tough. I mean, it all depends. There's a lot of nuance to that question. How much revenue, what kind of growth, who could you potentially hire? How much would you have to pay them? And then, what we sold our business for 3 times profit. So 3 times annual profit is what we sold our business for. Not very much.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just going to say, because the Ivy who asked that question, we were chatting about this briefly yesterday, and I forgot to mention to you that I have been looking. I mean, most of the trans community knows this. I've been looking at acquiring a local brick and mortar business, several different kinds. And the first question I'm always looking at is what's the SDE, because I'm always going to be looking at the business for a multiple of that. But the second question, or maybe even the first question, is who's managing it? Because if their owner is the main operator, usually it almost cancels out those discretionary earnings because I have to replace that person. So I think it's what you said about the business almost being worthless to give it a little bit more shape.
Yeah, I think
that's usually ends up that way for me too.
I think that space, though, in general, is a amazing space to do business in. I have family friends from back home who run a summer camp in person for kids, and they make millions of dollars a year doing that. It's several different summer camps. The whole summer's taken up, and they have tons of activities. It's expensive. They get high-end clientele, and they do really, really well. People are willing and able and eager to spend a ton of money on their kids, whether it be getting them into top schools, whether it be sports, or whether it be like activity-based daycare even, right? I mean, me and my wife only have so much energy for our kids, and then summer they're not in school. We spend 3 or 4 focused hours playing and having fun with them every day, but they're still awake for another 8 hours. What are we going to do? Put them in front of a TV, or are we going to take them somewhere where they can play with other kids and have a lot of, good social interactions? I love sports training. I'm a track and field athlete. Parents are willing to spend tons of money on their kids to get better at track, swimming, dance, daycare, all these different things can be really lucrative businesses if you treat them, not afraid to charge high prices and get good clientele in there.
Yeah. And I think another factor in this question that can be considered can also be kind of melded in with this other question. Have you been able to purchase any of your deals where the seller carries the no? And this would be good not because necessarily the person selling this virtual camp, that would be the way for them to do it, but just because those seller terms can mean you can still get money out of the business, just maybe not the traditional route.
So a lot,
have you had those?
Yeah, a lot. I'm gonna post a little link. If you talk about service businesses, a guy came on my podcast to talk about buying and selling service companies, and yeah, many of these businesses can be purchased with very little money, and you can finance them through those sellers. I'm going to post them. I think I posted in the Q&A here. Did it pop up just now? YouTube video? Yeah. So this guy basically comes in and says he's bought many service businesses for almost no money down. Just like the person who posted the question and said, "What's my company worth?" Not a whole lot. It's comes to a point where if you don't want to do it anymore, you want to move on to other things, you'll take whatever you can get, and it can be a pay over time kind of thing, right? It can be I don't have any money. I'm not willing to risk any of my money right now, but I want to buy your company and I want to grow it and I want to pay you back over time. Right. And you can absolutely do that. And with real estate, we have a lot of equity now, and we're trying to deploy equity. So we don't utilize seller financing much on our self-storage facilities. But early on we did, when we didn't have much cash, absolutely. And sellers of a storage business, to get their price, will often be very flexible on the terms. They're either going to name the price, or I always say, like when we're talking to an owner, like, you name the price if I can name the terms.
The terms, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And if the terms are payment over time, and you're going to hold this note, and it's good cheap debt from you, then I'm much more likely to do the deal.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we have like 5 minutes. I'm going to try to rip through these last questions. Do you have a checklist for deciding if the juice is worth the squeeze?
In a deal, in a acquisition, I guess. Yeah, I guess when you're buying a business, that's the hard part about being an entrepreneur, is that there's 1,000 ways to win. You can't listen to me talk and just take everything I say as the gospel. You can't read a business self-help book and think everything you read is going to apply to your life. There are thousands of decisions that you need to make every day, and you almost have to just have experience making those decisions. You got to practice, and you got to do your best to kind of predict what's going to happen, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And, you know, I don't know. It's really, that's a really loaded question, but it just kind of, you got to trust your gut.
Who do you listen to? Who do you look at for inspiration? Read, listen to, sources of inspiration.
Yeah. So I have a book list on the Sweaty Startup too. It's sweatystartup.com/book list.
Nice.
And there's some really good entrepreneurship books that are less mainstream on there. And with any of the stuff that I read and listen to, I mean, it's all about doing the work to apply it to my life. First of all, if I'm not doing anything, if I'm not running a company, reading self-help and business books is almost absolutely worthless, because I can't do anything to apply those things to, if I'm not managing anybody, what the heck is a management book going to help me with? Right. So you got to do the work. No book from cover to cover will be fully applicable to me. Nothing that anybody says will be fully applicable to me. Sean Puri and Sam Parr, their life is totally different than mine. Their businesses are totally different than mine. Their journey is totally different. What decisions they made. So you have to do the work to take these frameworks that people put out there and do the work to apply them to your life. And that involves much more than just consuming information all day. Okay, you're logging into trends, you're looking at business ideas, you're listening to Sam, you're listening to Nick, you're just consuming all day long. You got to stop, write some things down, spend some time with yourself, and think about how you're going to apply all this stuff you're taking in, all this data you're taking in to your life. I think there's information overload in the entrepreneurship space. There's so much information, and all of it's great, but people just get so addicted to going to the next dopamine hit. Oh, I'm going to go to the next business idea. I'm going to go to the next piece of content. I'm going to consume. And I'm getting smarter. No, you're not really getting smarter. You're distracted. You're not actually doing anything. You're not taking steps forward on your entrepreneurship journey, because it's really fun to consume content. It's really fun to think about entrepreneurship. It's really hard to do the not fun stuff required to make money in this world. You get on Twitter, and you think it's so easy to make money. Look at all these people making money. You get in trends and you think it's so easy to make money. You listen to Nick and you think it's so easy to make money. All these people are just making money. That is not the truth at all. Making money is really, really hard. It's hard for everybody. And it takes time, it takes practice, it takes dedication, it takes a lot of not fun, sweaty stuff. And, you know, that can be a wake-up call that, you know, when you finally get in the weeds of a business, no business is going to be perfectly fun all the time.
I also think that consuming information is where people go to hide, to pretend like they're making progress when they're not. And I always liken it to eating. It's like gorging and getting obese on information, but then not expending that energy anywhere by actually building something.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, last two. Let's see if we can pull this off. Can you elaborate on managing these locations remotely? Technology is certainly a big part of it, but do you mean there is no office and no on-site manager?
Yeah. So I live in Athens. I do, you know, big picture deal stuff for our business, but we have acquisitions team. They're all remote. They're cold calling owners. We have the closing team, which is getting our bank loans. I've actually never met our banker in person before. They have $30 million of loans with us. I've never met him in person. And then when you close on a facility, you hand it off to your operations team. And we have a team in Colombia and the United States together. There's 4 individuals that oversee all of our vendors on site. We have 6 vendors that we need. We need snow removal, you know, plowing, landscaping, pest control, overhead door company. We need these people to do work on our properties. We have to manage them from afar. We use Asana and some other tech stacks to really upload pictures and see what they're doing and give them good scopes of work. Then you have a customer service team. Many of them are in the Philippines. I use supportshepherd.com to hire them. Phenomenal people and really competent. And then we have, other than that, we have a collections team, which is like collecting the rent. Like, you know, you got to evict the tenants that don't pay. You have to auction off their units and you have to collect the rent. That's another division of our company. So we have operations, which is on the ground maintenance. We have customer service, which is America and Philippines based. And then we have collections and bill collecting. And we have 31 people that all work together. We use Slack, Google Docs, Asana, Salesforce. We use a lot of a pretty extensive tech stack to manage how everybody does their job.
Slick. Then I think this will be our last one because it's quick and easy. Where do you find buyers for service-based businesses? So any favorite like listing sites or brokers?
We interviewed a couple of brokers when we were about to sell our company, and we realized that they don't know our business and our industry like we do. So we went out and found our own buyer. We said, okay, what business does, you know, we mesh well with? And it was we had to hit the ground and call, and we got a hold of the owners and we said, we're interested in selling. And we had meetings with 20 companies and we did it ourselves. Because many times brokers are just going to put your listing on Biz Buy Sell and hope, or micro acquire and hope it gets sold.
Right.
I'm going to do the stuff that doesn't scale, and I'm going to pound the phones and I'm going to find that buyer. So that's what we did.
Awesome. Well, we'll let you go to respect your time. This has been the easiest AMA of my entire life. I'm so happy that you came on today.
April, I love what you and your team are doing. The trends community is great. I'm a proud member, and just super thankful that you would have me on. So I'm looking forward to doing it again sometime.
Yeah, please do. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Have a good day.
Juniper Square, the sponsor of our show, recently did a capital raising survey. And in this survey, they asked 142 senior executives at US-based commercial real estate firms a series of questions to understand the state of commercial real estate fundraising. It's an insanely valuable report with data on questions like, how much capital did you raise last year? How long did your last raise take? What type of investors are you raising the most from? And what strategies are working the best for you to find new investors? Download this report for free at junipersquareresearch.com. That's junipersquareresearch.com. Big thank you to Juniper Square for sponsoring the show. Thank you for listening to the Nick Huber Show. Just wanted to remind you that we have a paid real estate community where some really special stuff is happening. People are breaking down deals. People are networking. People are, I think, even formulating partnerships inside this group. We have over 100 members now. For more information, you can visit sweatystartup.com/REC. And the first 299 members of the group to get some momentum get $200 off the annual membership using the code FIRST299, FIRST 299. And also, you can check it out for 5 days for $1. You make a $1 payment, you can check out the community for 5 days. Highly recommend it if you're serious about bringing in some other people into your network, into your life, to help you become a better real estate investor.